Hello, everyone. Today we are going to get into a series on the rise of dictators and other authoritarian figures in Europe in the interwar years, 1919, 1939. And we're going to start that one off with the rise of Benito Mussolini in Italy. So just let's jump into it. So, early life, I'm not going to go back to his childhood, but his early professional career actually started as him as an elementary school teacher. And I'm sure you didn't see that coming, you know, Mussolini doing arts and crafts and teaching young children. But that's where he started. Although it did not last particularly long. He did that for a few years, and what then started to happen is he started to get really involved in politics, and one of the political ideas that he really got into was socialism. And this eventually led to his second career, in which he became the editor in chief of a socialist daily newspaper, Avanti, which means forward. And he did a pretty good job on that. However, he fell out of favor with people in the actual Socialist Party in 1912, 1913, because he was actually in favor of Italy being involved in World War I. The party actually was anti-war, and as a result, Mussolini was booted. Okay. And then we have the war being fought. And in 1919, Mussolini is now going to come back, and he is going to get more involved in politics by creating his own political party, and that is the Fascio di Combattimento, better known as the League of Combat, or the Fascists. Now, the Fascists were advocating a very specific, I guess you could say, specific political ideals. And at the top is that a nation is more important than an individual. Okay, that is crucial. And ultra nationalism is pretty much the way of thought at this point. Okay, and that individuals and too much individual freedom is actually what leads to chaos and disorder in a nation. And in order for a nation to have strong order and stability, a dictator is actually necessary in order to impose strong rule. And then a nation will become great when it has this order, and then it should expand militarily. So, advocating for conquering other areas. Deep down inside, Mussolini was hoping to start a second Roman Empire. He didn't quite get there, but that was the idea. So this is a very aggressive type philosophy that in a lot of times that might be seen as extremist or fringe, but in Italy it was kind of popular because Italy itself was struggling. Um, their parliament was a mess. Very few laws were being passed. Very few actions were done by. They did have a constitutional monarchy, so they had a king that would approve laws that were passed by the parliament, but parliament couldn't even get anything to the king. They had three major parties: the socialists, the liberals, and the popolare, who were Christian Democrats, and they just couldn't get in the scene on the same page. The next part of it that they were having issues was that because of a weak economy, they were having labor strikes all over the country. So they were having really slowed down production, which caused increases in basic prices for like food and stuff, which never it means that people are happy. And then with a combination of struggles in parliament and labor issues, people were really concerned that they were susceptible to possible communist overthrow or something similar to what they saw in Russia. And as a result, people really started to doubt the government big time. Finally, there were many people that were angry because they looked at like France and England, and they saw how France and England specifically benefited from the Treaty of Versailles, and that they didn't, that Italy really didn't get anything to the degree of anybody else. And as a result, they looked at the government as really as the problem for that. And Mussolini is going to make, or is not going to make, is going to take advantage of all of those types of situations, and he is going to raise money for his political party. And one of the first things that he does is create his own little private army known as the Squadristi, or better known as the Black Shirts. Here you see him walking with a contingent of them, evidently lots of medals there, except for that guy, but hey. And what he does is he has them attack like socialist officials and offices. He will actually also have them break up strikes, like physically break up strikes, to show that he wants to try to gain a greater control over the economy, and that he will not allow any like communists or anything like that to cause problems in the nation. And he will also ally himself politically with the liberals, with a man by the name of Giovanni Giolitti, who happened to be the prime minister at the time, giving him a little bit of credence. And Giolitti was hoping to get out of him, or Giolitti, I'm sorry. Giolitti was hoping to get out of him just, more support and to hope to grow the base of the liberals. What he wasn't realizing is that all that Mussolini wanted was to get some political alliances and just to make sure that his black shirts wouldn't get arrested and whatnot. So that was all in 1920. In 1921, there were elections for the Italian parliament, and fascists actually start to gain seats. So now they're starting to get a strong political presence. And then they are going to he's going to have the black shirts get more violent on purpose. Now follow me here, because this is a theme that we're going to see, especially in Germany. He basically, with conditions of the parliament and everything that's going on, his black shirts number about 200,000, and basically they terrorize political parties, they smash windows and stuff, they beat up other politicians, they also beat up possible socialists and communists, and the goal was here to destabilize everything, to basically show that we need to tear the whole thing down and start over. All right. Now, this is going to be followed with, an elaborate ruse for him to take over the government. With conditions that were so bad and the gaining popularity of Mussolini and his black shirts, on October of 1924, he gives a rousing speech urging the black shirts to seize power and march on Rome to take over the country, quote unquote, for the people. Behind closed doors, what actually happened was that he met with King Victor Emmanuel II and pretty much threatened him with death and ordered him to give him the position of prime minister. Now, prime minister is actually very important. The king was the one that approved laws and kind of worked with international type, what's the word I'm going to look for here? International relations and stuff like that, where the prime minister was kind of the overseer of the government and really did like day-to-day stuff. And so what happened is that he got that assured before the march, then has the march, and then Victor Emmanuel announces after the march that Mussolini is in power, and then it looks like he actually is in charge truly of the government, and that it does look like it was legally done. The picture on there is the march on Rome. Now, what he is then going to do is some specific things to consolidate his power and then eventually take complete power. After he is named prime minister, they're going to hold a special election because they feel that they need to get a restart, if you will, with parliament, and the fascists will win 65% of the seats in the parliament, and now he actually has legal control over the country. He will then immediately institute censorship laws of the press especially if you speak out against the state or the Catholic Church, you could find yourself in jail. Talk about that more in a moment. And then what happens is that a law is passed by the parliament, which was supported by the king, and that the prime minister was made head of the government, and the king is officially gone. And that his power is that he legislates by decree and decree only. And so now he is in charge. Now, in order to keep all of this, he actually will create an organization known as the OVRA, or the Organization for Vigilance and Repression of Anti-Fascism. All right, basically, he makes it legal for them to arrest anyone without charges or due process for any crime that they feel has happened. All parties other than fascist are outlawed, and the OVR is a secret police force. You see them actually walking with him on the right. They are led by a man by the name of Arturo Bocchini, and they control everything. All media is controlled by them. You see the quote on the "Mussolini is always right" was a common piece of propaganda that would be on just about every single poster or media type ad. They will then follow up this with massive indoctrination of the young to make sure that they get this going, and they'll create these quote-unquote youth groups. By 1938, 6.8 million people are in these groups, which was actually 66% of the population, and they actually teach young children and teenage children like paramilitary exercises, and the whole idea was trying to get as many people ready for military service as possible, because they are going to look to expand. Now, women in Italy under this time, it is not so good. Mussolini was actually anti-emancipation. He's anti-suffrage. He's anti any possible rights that women could have. He also, his general policies was that he wants to grow the population. So, for instance, he will do things like families with more children would be rewarded by the government. They'll get people can get additional pay, low-cost loans for like houses, and mothers would get special medals. You're going to see this again. And they have a special Mother and Child Festival held on December 21st each year to really push for that. And then many women would be fired from their jobs as well. So there's a lot of stuff that is out there that women just are really kind of pushed to the bottom here. Now, there was one group that could cause him more issues, if you will, than anybody else, and that would be the Catholic Church. Italy was one of the strongest Catholic areas in the world. If the Pope were to speak out against Mussolini, that would be a big, big problem. He also couldn't necessarily move against the Pope, because that could also cause problems. And so he's basically going to cut a deal with the Pope called the Lateran Accords of 1929. That is a picture of them before they signed the papers. That gentleman right here, if you look at the mouse to your left of Mussolini to his right, is Pope Pius XI. And what this does is that Vatican City is actually officially recognized as an independent country under the rule of the Pope. They are actually the smallest country in the world today. Catholicism is declared the only true religion of the state, and the church will and the last official part of the law was that the church also regulates marriage. Now, basically, another side note that went with this is that the church would agree to hold all the same laws as Italy itself, although that will change in the future. And they basically agree not to speak out against anything that Mussolini was doing. And so when it comes to civil rights abuses, when it comes to executing people that would speak out against him, when it would come to supporting Hitler and all of that type of stuff, the church would remain silent. Kind of one of the darker things that they did there in order to get freedom. And clearly, he's going to be a huge influence on Hitler. Hitler and he will ally fairly early in the 1930s after Hitler takes power. A lot of the things that I discuss here, you will see private armies and honoring women for being mothers and stuff, as well as some other political ideas, really with fascism will be crucial here. So, Mussolini, in a way, was kind of a hero to Hitler. And eventually in World War II, you'll actually see Mussolini overthrown and executed. Spoiler alert. And one of the reasons for that is he never really had 100% support. He never quite fixed the Italian economy. There was constant underground resistance to him. And eventually he would be overthrown. But for a short while here, so from mid 1920s until the mid 19 or about 1943, so about 19 years, he is going to rule Italy with an iron fist. Okay, make sure you have some notes on this, and then we will continue on with this series as we move forward. Thanks for watching.